My name is Jolie Loa, and I'm 35 years old. Even saying that out loud sometimes makes my chest tighten. Like 35 is the age where I'm supposed to have everything figured out: career, love life, family, harmony, neat little boxes, all checked. By 35, you're not supposed to wake up at 3 in the morning and wonder if the people you call family actually see you as a person or just a resource. But I didn't learn how to breathe for myself first. I learned how to breathe around other people's disappointments. On paper, my life looks successful. I'm a financial director at a major corporation in downtown Seattle. It's the kind of job that romantic comedies glamorize: glass offices, city views, important meetings. The reality is long hours, endless spreadsheets, and a lot of pretending I'm not exhausted. I'm good at it, though. Numbers make sense. Numbers are honest. If something doesn't add up, you can see it. I started saving money when I was 22. Every bonus, every raise, every little bit of side income. I treated it like it was sacred. I didn't buy the designer bags my coworkers loved. I skipped expensive vacations. I cooked at home when everyone else ordered in. I told myself there was a reason. I had a dream. I wanted a house, not just any house, my house. Something I bought with my own money, something no one could ever say they gave me. It took 13 years of discipline and sacrifice, but last spring, I did it. I signed the papers, and the keys were dropped into my hand. My dream house. 3 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen with granite countertops, and a gas range that still makes me smile every time I turn it on. Brazilian cherry hardwood floors that glow when the afternoon light hits them just right. A smart home system that lets me control the lights, the temperature, the music, all from my phone. And my favorite part, the covered patio in the backyard, surrounded by tall privacy fences. My little pocket of solitude. I drink my morning coffee there and sometimes think quietly, I did this. No one else. Me. The deed is in my name only. Every cent of the down payment came from my savings and investments. That fact matters to me more than I knew it would. I live there with my boyfriend Brandon. We've been together for 5 years, living together for the last 3. On the outside, we look like any stable couple in their 30s, 2 professionals sharing a life in a nice house. People assume we're married all the time. Sometimes I used to correct them. Lately, I don't bother. Brandon works in business consulting. That means he travels constantly. Denver, Austin, sometimes London. Suitcase by the door, airport notifications on his phone, hotel points. He loves it. I've gotten used to the empty side of the bed and FaceTime calls from generic hotel rooms. Brandon has a sister named Amber. She's 32, with this effortless kind of confidence that only really works if someone else is paying your bills. She's married to Kyle, a guy who calls himself a travel influencer. If you ask what he does for a living, he'll talk about engagement metrics and upcoming collaborations. I've never seen any of that translate into an actual paycheck. Amber works occasionally. She finds jobs, gets bored, quits. They live in this constant state of financial crisis, late notices, overdue bills, dramatic calls about how this month has just been really tough. For the last few months, I've been paying their rent. It started as a one-time thing. They called, panicked, said they were going to be evicted. Brandon asked if I could help, just until they get back on their feet. I wired the money, knowing, deep down, they were never going to pay me back. But once you're willing to rescue someone, they never stop drowning in front of you. A few weeks before everything happened, my neighborhood had a string of burglaries. 3 houses broken into in 2 weeks. The group chat for the block went wild. Ring camera footage, blurry images of figures in hoodies, stories about shattered windows. I'm not careless with what I've built. I made one decision instantly. I wasn't going to take chances. So I installed a comprehensive security system. 5 cameras, 1 at the front door, 1 at the back, 1 in the living room, 1 watching the driveway, 1 pointed at the street. The system syncs to my phone. If a leaf twitches wrong, I get a notification. The alarm is loud enough to wake the dead, or at least the neighbors. I gave spare keys to a few people, my parents, Brandon's parents, and of course, Brandon. I told myself it was just in case of an emergency. In my mind, emergency meant things like a burst pipe or a health scare, not what actually happened. I meant to tell everyone about the new alarm system, really I did, but then quarter end hit at work, and my life collapsed into spreadsheets and meetings and deadlines. The days blurred. Somewhere between late-night emails and early morning calls, I forgot. That detail would come back to haunt all of us. Last Tuesday, I was in a quarterly budget meeting, the kind that feels like time is melting, everyone arguing about allocations and projections, while the fluorescent lighting hums overhead. I was half listening, half thinking about the report I still had to finish. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. Break-in detected. Front door. Duplicate key used. For a second, my brain didn't process the words. It felt like one of those test alerts the system sends when you first install it. Then my heart started pounding. I opened the camera app with hands that suddenly felt clumsy. The front door feed popped up on the screen. Amber walked into my house like she owned it. She had shopping bags looped around her wrist, her expression casual, almost pleased. Behind her, Kyle followed in, looking around with this satisfied nod, like he was inspecting a place he'd just purchased. They didn't ring the doorbell, they didn't knock. They just used a key and walked in. My key, my house. I blinked, switched to the driveway camera. A small U-Haul truck sat in the driveway. Back door rolled up. Inside, I could clearly see furniture and moving boxes. This wasn't a visit. They were moving in. 30 seconds later, the alarm exploded. Even through my phone speaker, the sound was deafening. Amber dropped one of the bags and clapped her hands over her ears. Kyle spun around like he'd been shot at, shouting something I couldn't make out. I watched them frantically look around for a keypad they didn't know how to use. I'd never given them the shutdown code. Why would I? The security company's operator came through on the speaker system, her voice calm and professional beneath the siren. This is Secure Home Monitoring. Please state the name of the homeowner and the security phrase. Kyle shouted over the noise, "This is my brother Brandon's house." Wrong answer. The system has notified the police, the operator said. Please remain where you are. In the conference room, someone was droning on about department spending. On my screen, cops were already being dispatched to my address. I excused myself, muttered something about an urgent call, and walked out on legs that felt like they were made of glass. I called the non-emergency police line, my voice shaking as I gave my address. They transferred me to an officer on scene, Officer Davis. He asked me a series of questions. Did Amber and Kyle have permission to be in your house? No. Did you know they were coming? No. Did you give them permission to live there? I swallowed. Absolutely not. There was a pause. Then he said they were being detained for trespassing and that I'd need to come down later to give a formal statement. My hands went cold. Trespassing. My boyfriend's sister and her husband. In my house. I hung up and immediately called Brandon. It rang 4 times before he picked up. I could hear the murmur of voices behind him. Conference chatter, clinking glasses, the distant echo of hotel carpeting. Hey, what's up? He said, like I was just calling to say hi. Your sister and Kyle just broke into my house, I said. They used a spare key and walked in. They brought a U-Haul. They were moving in. There was a pause. Not shock, not confusion, just a pause. Oh, he said, yeah, I knew about that. My blood ran cold. What do you mean you knew? Amber called me last week. They got evicted. Kyle lost that startup job. I told them they could stay with us for a while. I was going to tell you, Jolie, it's not a big deal. We have a spare bedroom. Not a big deal. I stared at the opposite wall of the office hallway, feeling something inside me tilt. Brandon, I said quietly, they broke into my house. They brought furniture. They were moving in without telling me. The alarm went off. The police are there. They've been detained for trespassing. You called the cops on my sister? His voice shot up instantly, anger flooding in where any kind of concern for me should have been. Are you serious right now? I didn't call them. The security system did, automatically, because they used a key without the code. Well, fix it then, he snapped. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. They tried to move into my house without permission. This is ridiculous, Jolie. You're making this into something it's not. They're family. They just needed a place to stay. In that moment, something became very clear. To him, they were family. To him, my house was just space. To me, it was 13 years of sacrifice. I have to go, I said, because I knew if I stayed on the phone any longer, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. I hung up before he could answer. I stood there, alone in the hallway, my heart pounding in my ears. Then I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I called Brandon's mother. She answered on the first ring. Hello, Jolie. Did you know Amber and Kyle were moving into my house today? I asked. She didn't even hesitate. Yes, I'm the one who told them to move in with you. For a second, I couldn't speak. You have a big house with several rooms, she went on, her tone calm, almost condescending. They needed a place to stay. We're family, Jolie. Family helps each other. There's no need for all these formalities. Formalities, like permission, like ownership. They broke in, I said, my voice low. The police are there. Her tone snapped, sharp and outraged. You called the police on them? Are you trying to give them a criminal record? Do you know what that could do to their future? I didn't call the police. The system did, because they had no right to enter my house without my consent. You should fix this, she said, firm now. Tell the police it was a misunderstanding. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be. I felt something in my chest harden. I'm not fixing anything, I said. They had no right to be there. She started to say something else, but I hung up. For a moment, I just stood there in the empty hallway, phone clenched in my hand, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me. It hit me all at once. The people who were supposed to be my family didn't see my home as mine. They saw it as theirs, by default. And whether I liked it or not, this was not going away. I went back into the conference room, but the spreadsheets on the projector might as well have been blank white slides. People were still arguing about marketing budgets and departmental cuts. My body was in that chair, but my mind was standing in my living room, watching Amber drop her shopping bags as the alarm screamed around her. I kept my phone face down on the table, but it was vibrating every few minutes. Texts from Brandon, notifications from the security app, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. When Amber flashed across the screen, I knew there was no version of my life where I could ignore that. I'm so sorry, I have to step out again, I murmured to my boss, not waiting for a response before slipping out into the hallway. I answered the call and barely got the phone to my ear before her voice hit me like a slap. Are you out of your mind? Amber screamed. The police treated us like criminals. The entire neighborhood was watching. People were recording us, Jolie. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? The corridor outside the conference room was empty, just gray carpet and framed abstract art. Her words echoed off the walls. You broke into my house, I said, trying to keep my voice level. I had a key, she snapped. Brandon gave it to us. Your alarm went off and the cops showed up like we were robbing the place. You set us up. I felt a chill working its way up my spine. Something in her tone. It wasn't just anger. It was entitlement sharpened into a blade. Without thinking too hard about it, I opened my voice recorder app and hit the red button. A small part of me whispered that was paranoid. A larger part whispered, you're going to need proof. I installed security because there were break-ins in the neighborhood, I said. I didn't even know you were coming. You knew we were in trouble, Amber shouted. You knew we got evicted. Brandon told you we were going to stay with you. No, I said quietly. He didn't. She barreled on as if she hadn't heard me. We had permission from him and from his mother. We had every right to be there. And then you humiliate us in front of the entire street? You owe us for this. That word hung in the air. Oh? I repeated. Her breathing crackled through the speaker. I want $15,000. I actually thought I'd misheard her. What? 15,000, she repeated, slower, like she was explaining something simple to a child. For emotional distress and public humiliation. For the damage to our reputation. You made us look like criminals. You pay us. We forget this happened. You don't, Her voice hardened. We get lawyers involved, and we make this very ugly for you. Do you understand me? There it was. All the late-night calls asking for rent. All the, we'll pay you back when things get better. All the designer bags on a zero-income lifestyle. All of it suddenly crystallized into something cleaner, meaner. This wasn't help. This was extraction. My fingers tightened around the phone. For a moment, my heart was racing so fast I could barely hear my own thoughts over it. Then, very calmly, I said, You'll be talking to my lawyer from now on. What lawyer? She spat. I didn't answer. I simply hung up and stared at the blank screen. The recording icon glowed red for a second longer, then saved. My lawyer. The truth was, I didn't have one on retainer, but I knew exactly who to call. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her. Victoria Hahn, real estate law. We'd met in college. Back then, we were just two broke girls studying in the library and sharing instant noodles. She used to joke that one day she'd bill me by the hour. I used to joke I'd never be able to afford her. Now, I didn't care what it cost. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, stranger, what's going on? I need legal advice, I said, skipping the small talk. My voice wobbled. Right now. That got her attention. Okay, start from the beginning. I stood there in the hallway, one hand on the cool white wall, and told her everything. The burglaries, the security system, the cameras, Amber and Kyle walking into my house with a U-Haul, the alarm, the police, Brandon knowing but not telling me, his mother encouraging them to move in, And finally, the call I had just recorded, the demand for $15,000. There was a long silence on the line. Jolie, she said slowly, this is not a family misunderstanding. This is a violation of your property rights. What Amber and Kyle did is essentially a housing invasion. And that demand for money? Her tone sharpened. That could qualify as extortion. The word made my stomach flip. I don't want to blow this out of proportion, I said weakly, even as I heard how pathetic it sounded. They're Brandon's family. Brandon's family broke into your house with a moving truck, she said. They intended to occupy your property without your consent. That's not a miscommunication. That's a boundary disaster. You need to protect yourself. My throat burned. What do I do? Go down to the police station, Victoria said. Today. File an official statement. Show them the security footage. Play them that recording. Ask about a restraining order. And Jolie. Yeah? Do not give Amber a single cent, not one. I closed my eyes. Somewhere, in another version of my life, I might have caved, thrown money at the problem just to make it stop. That version of me had been slowly dying for years. Okay, I said, I'll go. Text me when you're done, she said. If you want, I'll review anything the police give you before you sign it. Thank you, I whispered. When I hung up, I felt strangely hollow, like someone had scooped everything out of me and left just enough to stand upright. I told my boss there was an emergency at home. I don't even remember what excuse I gave. 15 minutes later, I was in my car, driving to the station, my fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel at every red light. The police station was colder than I expected. Harsh lights, scuffed floors, the faint smell of stale coffee. An officer at the front desk checked my name and address and nodded. Officer Davis will be with you shortly. He appeared a few minutes later, silver hair, lined face, tired eyes that had seen too much. Ms. Loa, come with me. In a small interview room, I told the story again. This time, I kept my voice steady. I showed him the camera footage on my phone, the moment the door opened, Amber and Kyle stepping in, the U-Haul in the driveway. Then I handed him my phone to play the recording of Amber's call. He listened without interrupting, jaw tightening as Amber's voice filled the room. I want $15,000. You pay us, we forget this happened. You don't. We get lawyers involved and make this very ugly. When it ended, there was a quiet click from the phone speaker, followed by the soft hum of the building's ventilation. You did the right thing coming here, he said finally. Are you sure? I asked before I could stop myself. I mean, this is my boyfriend's family. I don't want to ruin their lives. I just want them to stay away from my house. His expression softened. Ms. Loa, they attempted to move into your property without your consent and then demanded money when they were caught. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. Our job is to document and protect, not to handle family politics. He typed for a few minutes, then looked up. We can file a formal report and initiate a restraining order barring Amber and Kyle from approaching your residence. If they violate it, they'll be arrested. Do you feel unsafe with any extended family or associates who might come by the house on their behalf? Yes, I said immediately. The image of Brandon's mother flashed in my mind, righteous and furious over the phone. He has relatives who might try to get involved. We'll note that, he said. Keep your security system active. If anyone shows up, call us right away. He printed some documents and slid them across the table. I signed where he indicated, my hand trembling slightly. When it was done, he shook my hand. You did nothing wrong, he said. You protected yourself. That's what the law is here for. I walked out of the station into the afternoon light, feeling like I'd stepped into an alternate universe. Cars drove by. People crossed the street with coffee cups and shopping bags. The world looked normal. My phone buzzed in my hand. I glanced down. 15 missed calls from Brandon. 10 text messages. I opened them. What did you tell the cops? You're blowing this way out of proportion. You're ruining Amber's life. Call me back now. You need to withdraw the report. We can fix this if you just stop being so dramatic. Not one message said, Are you okay? Not one. I'm sorry this happened to you. Not one. I should have told you. I was wrong. Just instructions, demands, blame. Something inside me cooled. By the time I got home, the sky was turning that soft, grayish-blue Seattle does so well. I walked through my quiet house, past the neat kitchen counters and the gleaming floors, and into my home office. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. There was a thin, unlabeled folder inside. I'd put it there months ago, hoping I'd never need it. I pulled it out and sat down. Inside were printed emails from Victoria. Notes she'd given me after another incident. The night Brandon withdrew almost $30,000 from our joint future plans account without telling me and wired it to Amber to help her out of a jam. I could still hear that argument echoing in my memory. "It's our money," he had said back then. "What's yours is mine. She's my sister." "And I'm what?" I'd asked. "Your bank?" That was the night I'd called Victoria for the first time, asking what my options would be if I ever needed to legally separate my assets. She'd sent information about property law, about how to protect the house that was solely in my name. I'd printed everything, tucked it away, and told myself I was being dramatic. I looked down at those papers now, the words blurring slightly. Back then, the thought of leaving had been a distant theoretical exit sign glowing in the dark. Now it felt a lot closer and suddenly possible. I closed the folder and set it gently on the desk. Somewhere in the house, the heater clicked on, a soft mechanical sigh. For the first time, I let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding for months. If this is how he treats me, when everything is on the line, why am I still here? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with only the dim kitchen light behind me, staring at the folder of documents I had once hoped I'd never need. Around 9 p.m., I heard it, the rapid crunch of tires on gravel, too fast for a residential street. Then brakes, the slam of a car door, heavy footsteps. Brandon was home. Not home because he lived here, but home because he still thought he did. The front door burst open. He didn't knock. He didn't call out. He just came inside like he owned the place. His face was red, jaw clenched, eyes wild in a way I'd only seen once before, during the fight about the $30,000. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. I didn't stand. I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. "I protected my property." "You got my sister arrested," he spat. "You humiliated her. You humiliated Kyle. You embarrassed our entire family, Jolie." His voice echoed through the living room, bouncing off walls I paid for, floors I refinished myself, a ceiling he never contributed a dime to. "They broke into my house," I said evenly. "They brought a moving truck. They were moving in, without telling me." "You're overreacting," he snapped. "They just needed a place to stay. It was temporary." "Temporary?" I gestured toward the stack of boxes I saw on the camera feed. "They brought furniture, Brandon." "So what?" he fired back. "You have space. We have a whole extra bedroom. They wouldn't have bothered you." My stomach turned. He truly didn't see the problem. "This isn't your house," I said softly. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "This isn't your house," I repeated, calmer this time. "It's mine. I bought it with my money, long before we ever lived together. Your name isn't on the deed. You know that." His face tightened. "We've been together for 5 years. I've lived here for 3. What's yours is mine." "No," I said. "That's not how Washington property law works." The moment I said it, I watched something shift behind his eyes. He understood I had spoken to someone. He knew this wasn't panic or emotion. This was strategy. "Oh, so now you're getting lawyers involved," he sneered. "Your sister demanded $15,000 from me," I said. "I have the recording." He froze for just a second, a crack in the armor. I continued. "She accused me of setting her up. She said she'd make it ugly if I didn't pay. That's extortion, Brandon." "Don't use legal words you don't understand," he snapped, but his voice wavered. "I understand perfectly," I said. And so did Officer Davis. His face darkened. "What I don't understand," I continued, "is how you knew they were coming and didn't tell me. You gave them permission to move into my house, Brandon. That's not small. That's not nothing. That's a violation." "They're family," he shouted. "And what am I?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. In that silence, I found the answer. I stood, walked to the coffee table, and picked up the folder. The one I had pulled out earlier. I held it out to him. He took it, flipping it open. "What's this?" "Information from a real estate lawyer," I said, "about how to legally separate assets when one partner owns the home entirely, about your rights to take your things, about the lack of rights you have to take mine." He stared at the first page, title printed in neat, crisp font, Cohabitation, Asset Protections, and Single-Owner Property Guidelines. His brows furrowed, rage rising in a hot wave. "So you've been planning to kick me out?" "No," I said quietly. "I've been planning how to protect myself if you crossed another line." "And this is what you think this is?" "You let your sister break into my house," I said, voice steady. "You lied by omission and refused to take responsibility. You demanded I fix the police report. You yelled at me when I was the one violated. And when I was scared, you didn't ask if I was okay." His jaw clenched. "So what, you're ending things over this?" I'm ending things, I said, because this isn't the first time you've put your family above me, because you see my home as something you control, because you think being with you entitles you to everything I've built. He threw the folder onto the floor, papers scattering. Fine, fine. You want me out? I'll go. But you better believe I'm coming back for the rest of my stuff. That's fine, I said. Call first. What? You don't live here anymore, Brandon. You're not walking in unannounced again. Not ever. His face twisted. You think you can just control everything? You think you're so perfect because you bought a damn house? I think, I said, that I've worked too hard to let anyone, your sister, your mother, or you, take advantage of me. For a long moment, all we could hear was his breathing. Harsh, unsteady. Then he spun around and stormed upstairs. I heard drawers yanked open, hangers crashing, zippers dragging. 20 minutes later, he stomped down the stairs with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. He paused at the door. I'll be back. Call first, I repeated. He slammed the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. And then there was silence. Thick, heavy, absolute. I sat down slowly as if my body didn't quite belong to me. My house felt different now. Emptier, but clearer. Like a room after a storm, when you can finally hear your own breathing again. The next morning, I called a locksmith. He came within 2 hours, replaced every lock, front door, back door, garage door, programmed a new keypad code, handed me fresh sets of keys. I kept one. I gave the other to Victoria. Then I called the security company. I upgraded everything, motion sensors, additional cameras, new monitoring protocols. And then I removed every member of Brandon's family from the emergency contact list. I added Victoria instead. When it was done, I sat on my couch, holding the new keys in my palm. They felt heavier than the old ones. Not just metal, not just access, but ownership and consequence, and a new chapter I hadn't planned for. My phone buzzed again. Texts from Brandon and his parents. Accusations, guilt trips, insults, demands. I blocked them, one by one, quietly, without apology. In the days that followed, Brandon hired a lawyer to try to claim half of everything, half the furniture, half the equity, half the house he never paid for. Victoria handled it with surgical precision. Legally, he had no claim. Emotionally, he had already lost me. And as I sat alone on my patio one evening, watching the sky fade into soft shades of lavender and gray, one truth settled into my chest, like a stone finally finding its place at the bottom of a river. I had ended a relationship, but I had chosen myself, and that choice would shape everything that came next. The months after Brandon left felt like I was living in a space between worlds. The house was quieter, emptier, but somehow more mine than it had ever been. The walls no longer felt like they were closing in on me. I could move freely, without checking the calendar to see when Brandon would be home, or when his family would show up uninvited. The only sound in the house now was my own voice, when I hummed along to songs in the kitchen or whispered my thoughts to myself at night. For the first time in years, I could breathe. But something inside me, something deeper, still felt off. It wasn't the emptiness of the house. It wasn't even the remnants of my broken relationship with Brandon. It was me. I felt disconnected from myself, like I didn't know who I was when I wasn't fighting for someone else's approval or maintaining a version of myself for others. I was strong, yes, but I was also tired, and I couldn't deny it any longer. I needed help. That's when Victoria sat me down at our favorite cafe one afternoon, her voice gentle but firm. "You've been through a lot, Jolie," she said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "You need to process this properly. I think you should consider therapy. Just talk to someone." I looked at her, feeling a mix of surprise and reluctance. "I'm fine, really." "You're not fine," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "And there's no shame in asking for help. You've been strong for too long, but it's okay to want to heal." The word stuck in my mind for days. It's okay to want to heal. The thought was like a permission slip I hadn't known I needed. I'd been so focused on surviving the fallout from Brandon's betrayal, I hadn't even stopped to check if I was okay. 2 weeks later, I made the call. I set up an appointment with a therapist named Dr. Williams, a calm, patient woman in her 50s, who specialized in helping people process trauma and rebuild their sense of self. Our first session was quiet. Too quiet. I wasn't used to someone actually asking me how I felt without a deadline looming over us. Dr. Williams didn't rush me. She didn't fill the silence with empty reassurances or quick advice. She just listened. I told her about the break-ins, the tension with Brandon, The betrayal by his family, the stress of being the reliable one, always expected to carry everyone's burdens. And then slowly I began to share more about my childhood, my insecurities, how I had always felt like I had to be perfect to be loved. I've never really put myself first, I admitted, voice trembling slightly. I was always taking care of others, meeting their needs. And then when I needed help, when I needed someone to take care of me, there was no one. Dr. Williams nodded. You've spent so much time keeping everyone else afloat that you didn't realize you were sinking yourself. It was like a dam breaking. For the first time in months, I let myself feel the weight of everything, the disappointment, the hurt, the anger, and just let it all out. It wasn't easy, but each week it got a little easier to breathe, to speak my truth, to stop being so afraid of being alone, of not being enough. And slowly I began to see myself differently. I wasn't just someone's partner. I wasn't just the reliable one. I was Jolie, and I had been worthy of respect even if no one else had recognized it. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, I felt myself regaining pieces of who I used to be and discovering new parts of me I had neglected for too long. I threw myself into work, focusing on projects that excited me, projects I had shelved for years while I supported everyone else's dreams. I started taking care of my body again, eating better, getting enough sleep, going for long walks to clear my mind. I even took up painting, something I had loved when I was younger, but had abandoned in favor of more practical things. One Saturday morning, a few months after I'd started therapy, I was at a charity gala my company sponsored. I wasn't planning on meeting anyone. In fact, I was fully prepared to be alone, to enjoy the evening on my own terms. But then I met Andrew. He was 42, a cardiologist, tall with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. We started talking over the terrible jazz band they'd hired. Both of us agreed it was borderline torture. And from there, the conversation flowed naturally. We talked about work, life, books we'd read, things that didn't feel forced. Andrew had a way of listening to me without interrupting, of making me feel seen without trying too hard. He wasn't like anyone I had dated before. He wasn't trying to fix me or tell me what I should do. He was just there, present. I was nervous, but also intrigued. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't terrified of opening up to someone new. Over the next few weeks, Andrew and I went on slow, deliberate dates. Dinner at quiet restaurants, walks in the park, shared laughs over bad movies. He never pressured me for more than I was comfortable with, always respecting my boundaries. For once, I didn't feel like I was giving something up to make someone else happy. It wasn't about needing someone to complete me. It was about finding someone who respected me for who I was. After 3 months, I felt ready to tell him about everything that had happened with Brandon and his family. I wasn't sure how he'd react, but it felt important to be honest with him, to tell him who I really was. We were having dinner at our favorite bistro when I told him the whole story about the betrayal, the break-in, the demand for money, the divorce. Andrew's face softened as he listened. When I finished, there was a long silence, and I braced myself for some kind of judgment. Finally, he spoke. That must have been terrifying, he said quietly. Having someone break into your home like that, the violation, the fear, it's not something anyone should have to go through. You don't think I overreacted? I asked, almost nervously. He shook his head. Overreacted? You did exactly what you should have done. Your home is your sanctuary. Nobody has the right to violate that. In that moment, I realized something. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Andrew understood me. He respected me. He saw me as an equal, not as someone to be fixed or manipulated. For the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. The weeks that followed were peaceful. We took things slow, but I began to feel more open, more comfortable with the idea of love again. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted it. I had no idea where this new chapter would lead, but for the first time, I was okay with that. I was finally learning that it was okay to let go of what wasn't meant for me, and to embrace the life that was waiting for me. A few months after Andrew and I started dating, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew immediately who it was from. I opened it carefully, my heart beating a little faster than it should. It was from Brandon's mother. The letter was an absurd mix of guilt and entitlement. She claimed that she had been thinking about everything, and that it was time for me to apologize and come back to the family. She even wrote that she forgave me for everything I had done, that she was allowing me to return. I read it 3 times. And then sitting at my kitchen table, I started laughing. I couldn't stop. I laughed until my stomach hurt, until the tears blurred my vision. The audacity of this woman. She wasn't offering me reconciliation. She was offering me control. She was offering me a seat at the table she had stolen from me. And then, without a second thought, I shredded the letter into tiny pieces. It was over. That weekend, I told Andrew about the letter while we were having brunch at our favorite bistro. He nearly choked on his coffee when I read the part where she forgave me. He laughed too. She forgave you? He asked incredulously. For what? For protecting my home, I said, shaking my head. Andrew shook his head, still smiling. That family is insane. Former family, I corrected. I have nothing to do with them anymore. Good, he said, squeezing my hand. You deserve better. And in that moment, I realized I did deserve better. Not because Andrew said it, not because anyone else did, but because I finally believed it myself. For the first time in years, I was living my life on my own terms. I was no longer defined by the people who had tried to control me, to take from me. I was defined by me. And that, I realized, was the greatest freedom of all.